Hello everyone and welcome back to another Minecraft showcase video. In this one we're going to check out the concept for a instant item repair system. And this comes off the back of my last showcase video where we investigated the possibility of creating a XP farm where the player doesn't have to do anything. They can just be in the area and they don't actually get the XP given to them. It is stored inside of a furnace, which is a new feature of Minecraft 1.13. If you have not heard of this before, the furnace is now going to remember everything that it smelts. So if items get taken out from a hopper down below, it will still store the XP. So if I grab this piece right here, you can see that we get 30 levels, which is pretty cool. Now in that video I suggested that it'd be really cool if there was a way for us to count all of the XP going into the furnace, and then that could lead us to create a system where we are able to deliver the XP from the furnace in the right amount to repair an entire tool. So if you've got mending and you're holding it in your hand when you take the item out of the furnace and you get the XP, it could repair it all the way. So before we jump into the world with the contraption, I just want to go over a couple of things with the items that we're smelting and the fuel source as well. In the last showcase video, we were trying to create items to smelt on a fuel source that required the player to do absolutely nothing. That is no longer the case, but it just so happens that two of those things I still think are a pretty good idea for this contraption. Now in that previous video we had a passive animal farm, and many of you pointed out that a chicken farm like this, a classic chicken cooker, could be used, minus the cooking of course, because then we get ourselves the raw chicken. Now when it comes to other sorts of things that you can smelt, there really isn't anything, because iron and gold ore, for example, give out more XP, but then you'd have to spend ages mining for those blocks, which really doesn't make too much sense when you can automate a fuel source that gives out less XP. I would recommend going with the sticks and having a witch farm plugged into this setup so there's a constant supply of fuel. There is also a method for duplicating carpets which can be used as fuel. However, this is obviously a bug and something that could potentially get patched, and what you see right here isn't the actual thing, it's just a mock-up because I don't know how that works. Now when it comes to the fuel, you don't actually have to automate this fully. If you've got loads of coal lying around or dried kelp blocks, those things can do the job too. So if you don't mind stocking this thing up with lots of fuel, it'll still get the same job done. And for the sake of this video, what we're going to use is command blocks, and those are going to spawn in sticks and the raw chicken for us to smelt. And here are those command blocks. They're creating raw chicken and sticks, which will instantly disappear if not picked up by the hoppers. And all of the hoppers are filled up here because this has been running for some time. Yes, that is the contraption right there. And before we get into it, an idea crossed my mind when setting this all up, which is that your tools aren't always going to be diminished down to the last point, and perhaps it might be a good idea to store XP in furnaces as amounts like 100, 200 or 300. So let's say that your sword had been damaged by around 200 points, you could grab 100 XP and then repair all of that. So that's actually another way to set this up, but it would be done the same way because this is all about counting the amount of XP. Anyway, I'm going to jump into survival. And now we can use the first module. Now the lamp is on because we've got the right amount of XP stored in the furnace, and then it has been frozen from smelting any more of the roast chicken. You can see I smelted up a whole bunch here, and this should be enough XP to repair this thing all the way. So when I take out this roast chicken, we should see, yeah, and a little bit extra, but it repaired it all the way, and that is the concept, and it is pretty fantastic. Now of course we can reset this module, so I press the button up the top, the lamp turns on, this thing is ready to go again. I have to chuck in a raw chicken to get it going, but now it will do its job and keep going until this thing has been filled up again and it's ready to give you the right amount of XP, at which point the lamp is going to turn on. So due to the way that the math is done, there's always going to be a little bit extra XP, which is better than there not being enough, and there we go, fully repaired chest plate. Then we have the diamond sword, which actually fills up an entire chest and all of the hopper as well, and a little bit of the furnace. So the design that I've built for this thing didn't really accommodate the amount of items in total. There is one down there that requires the extra chest to be sticking out of the front. Anyway, this is going to deliver a lot of XP all at once, and there we go. Quite a lot extra on that one. We went all the way up to level 3, and that's been fully repaired. And now we have the elytra, bam, and it's instantly fully repaired. Well, that is something very positive about this, is that it instantly repairs these things. Alright, so then we have the bow, bam, there we go, fully repaired. And this last one is 30 levels of XP. It's filled up the entire double chest and also most of that, almost backing up into the furnace here. And there we go, we now got up to 30 levels. So now we're going to get into the redstone behind how this contraption works, and please don't take this as a tutorial. This is a showcase video for a reason. This design still has some quirks and flaws that mean you have to use it in a particular way. Nothing that actually breaks here, so it is good to be used, but I want to kind of revise the whole contraption with the feedback that I get from this video, and then perhaps make a tutorial once we land on something concrete. So this is the contraption right here, and what you'll notice is that there are some different colored blocks, and that's because I've broken up the 4 different sections into different groupings of blocks to help me understand my own contraption. That means we can actually strip them back and go through it one part at a time. The very first thing that we need to do is be able to count the items coming through the smelting system, and the way that I've decided to do that is with this hopper at the bottom. So when an item has finished smelting, goes through the hopper into the chest, we can pick that up with a comparator and send a signal up here. This signal also locks the hopper up above, so this thing isn't just constantly full up, which is something that I might actually change and revise at a later date. But we're going to run into a problem here, which is that we're using the redstone to count each of these signals, but that's going to be a lot of different items to be smelted. And so the thing that I thought could help us was actually signal strength. If I just lay down a torch here, some redstone wire and press F3, you can see that on the right hand side the power of a signal goes down over time, and what we can do is use that to create a signal strength counter, and then that means we can divide the counting that we're doing by 15, which you might redeem unnecessary, but if you want to store large amounts of XP, it's kind of necessary to do. So over here we have this system where every time we get something on the input, that bit of redstone right there is going to go down. It's currently on 12. If I press this because another item has been smelted, it goes down to 11, and so on and so on. And then finally when it goes down to 0, it's going to send a signal back into itself to reset it, putting it up to 15, but we can also use that signal to start doing some counting. This torch right here is where the signal goes up into our counter, and what it does is it moves items from one dropper into the other. Because this one has finished, it's now all the way across, and that means when this dropper is empty, this comparator is going to turn off, the torch turns on, and it locks the hopper, putting items into the furnace, and it also lights up the lamp on the front, which I actually destroyed from this. So over here we would have that block, and that would power the lamp and let you know that the process has finished. And the very last circuit is an automatic resetter, and this was a bit of an afterthought, so it's kind of stitched onto the top of this contraption. It works, but it's a little bit clunky. What happens is it waits for the player to press this button, and then that's going to push this little clock back into position. Then when this thing has moved all of the items out, which we are going to now help it with, yeah, let's drag them out like that, then it's going to push it back over there, and that actually stays extended until one item comes back into here. But at this point that is not going to go back until the player presses this again, so that automatically resets it, and now the items are back in here, and you can see that this has been turned off and the system can be used all over again. And now you're looking at a spreadsheet. Now the droppers that I just showed you need to have a certain amount of items inside them, which means that there is some math behind that goes into figuring out exactly how many of those there are. So first of all, I've written down the durability of each of the tools here, and some of these are actually incorrect. They're off by like 1 or 2, but let's not worry about that. In the next cell across, what we do is we take that number and we divide it by 2, because each 1 XP will repair 2 durability points. So we halve that first of all, and then what we do is we divide it by 0.35, because that's how much XP we get for the chicken. So this tells us how many smelts we need to do inside of the system. Now what we've got to do is divide that number by 15, because remember we use the signal strength to reduce the total amount of items that we would need, and then we go ahead and we round those up. So by rounding them up, we make sure we get more than enough inside of the system. And then that number simply becomes the amount you put into the dropper, and of course it will then go through the motions, smelting the items, counting the signal strength, moving items from one dropper to the other, and then when it's finished it would have smelted enough items for you to get the XP required to then fix that item. So this contraption has two flaws that I really want to fix, and possibly our counting system could be revised. But first of all, let's go over the flaws. You aren't going to have a roast chicken conveniently waiting for you here. What I had to do was chuck one in and try and grab it out before the hopper. So for the sake of this video and making things easy, I chucked a redstone block down there. So that kind of finagling to get the XP out is not particularly desired. Another thing that you have to do after you reset this is chuck a raw chicken back in the furnace to get it going again. So if the redstone had been set up different, if those two things could be taken care of, that would make this contraption much more user friendly. Now the other thing that I think could potentially be improved is our signal strength counting system. There might actually be a far more compact way of counting large amounts of numbers, but what this does is it allows us to divide the amount of items we need in our counting droppers up here by 15, and that makes a huge difference even for an item that has less XP. If we multiply that by 15, I'm pretty sure it's going to flow over the dropper and then require a much more complicated system. So those are the three things that need addressing before I make a tutorial on this, and that is where we're going to wrap up this video. So if you have enjoyed it, then leave a like. As always, thank you for supporting the channel, it's greatly appreciated, and I will see you soon with another video.